Because every time I wanted to speak about this issue and write about this issue, I was too traumatized. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Salatu salam ala Sayyid al-Mursaleen Mawlana Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsanin ila yawmiddin wa ba'd. Respected brothers, elders, sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. We inshallah are going to carry on with some of the history of Uzbekistan and Central Asia. Last week I spoke about the fact that a time came when Central Asia became the center of learning. And this is, subhanAllah, amazing thing. Why? Because if you look at the people, you know, they're somewhere half between like almost Chinese and Asian looking. They're not Arabs. But within 200 years of Islam coming, this place now becomes the center in many ways of hadith. 4,000 plus kilometers from Medina and Mecca. This is the place which becomes the center of learning. This is Jeep. It shows that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not need a specific nation to spread His deen. Allah uses whoever and whatever He wishes. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to protect His deen, He uses mosquitoes. He uses flies. He uses the wind. So you look, Bukhari, Uzbekistan, Muslim, Iran, Abu Dawud, Iran, Tirmidhi, Uzbekistan, Nasa'i, Turkmenistan, Ibn Majah, Iran. All the authors of the Sahih Sitta, none of them came from the Arab world or any other part of the world. They came from Central Asia. And this became not only the center of learning, it also became very rich. Why? Because it had the Silk Road, which ran all the way from China through Central Asia into Europe. So it was a prosperous place. But there was one issue, which is always the issue, unfortunately, amongst the Muslims, and that is the issue of disunity. So disunity also prevailed here, like it prevails today. So you had two large Muslim caliphates at that time. You had the Khwarzims, who ran from West Iran all the way to West China. And then you had the Abbasides. The Khwarzims were predominantly non-Arabs, and the Abbasides were predominantly Arab countries and further afield. Then what happened was you had the emergence of the Mongol, Genghis Khan. So Genghis Khan now had taken Mongolia, China, and that part of the world. But he stopped short of the Khwarizm dynasty, which was right next to him, the Muslim dynasty. He stopped short there. By now, the historians mentioned that he had killed already approximately 18.4 million individuals. So, until then, there was no real tension between him and the Khwarizm Shah, besides the fact that once he wrote him a letter and he called him his son. So the Khwarizm Shah was, upset. How dare you call me your son? But he didn't really make much of an issue out of it. So what happened, a group of traders, Mongolian traders, now came into the Khwarizm dynasty. There's 500 of them, there's a caravan. The governor of that particular place took them in and said that these are spies. So Genghis Khan now sent 3 messengers, 2 non-Muslims, 1 Muslim. So when they went to the Shah to protest, the Shah had the 2 non-Muslims' hair shaved and he had the Muslim killed. So after this, the Genghis Khan was upset. So Genghis Khan said, two Shahs cannot stay in one place. So Genghis Khan now he sends his army. So really the tensions, even according to the vast majority of Muslim historians, the tensions which were created between the Mongols and the Khwarizm dynasty were actually initiated by the Khwarizmites. So Central Asia was under the Khwarizmites. So now Genghis Khan comes. And I want to really pay more attention to the Uzbekistan area. So he comes into Bukhara. So when he comes into Bukhara, the people of Bukhara are thinking, what shall we do? There's 20,000 men defending Bukhara. So they begin to speak. What shall we do? A group said, look, we should fight. And another group said, no, what we should do is that we should have a treaty with him, asking for security, and then open the gates. The vast majority inclined towards the fact that they should open the gates for Genghis Khan and his army to come in, and that's what they did. So Qazi Badruddin had this responsibility. He went to Genghis Khan, he spoke to Genghis Khan, and he said to Genghis Khan, he said, look, if you give us security, we won't fight. So Genghis Khan said, okay, fine. Only 400 men held out in the one fortress. Eventually Genghis Khan had the Muslims of Bukhara assisting him, and they took that fortress and then they killed every single one. But this is where it begins. Genghis Khan goes past, and I visited this masjid. He goes past this masjid and he looks at this masjid and he says, this masjid, he said, is this the house of the king? Because, he didn't know what a masjid was. He said, is this the house of the king? They said, no, this is not the house of the king. This is a house of Allah. So salah is taking place. So imagine this. And really you got to be there, wallahi, to actually imagine this. So Genghis Khan now walks with his army into the masjid. Salah is going on. Genghis Khan says, kill the imam. So they move, and the mihrab until today is still there. So they move forward, they kill the imam. The next imam moves forward. They kill the second imam. The next imam moves forward. They kill the third imam. 22 imams were martyred by the time Salah finished. 22 imams. Can you imagine if that happened today? This imam wouldn't be on the musalla, and nor would this imam be here. 22. And then Genghis Khan, he ascended the pulpit and he said, the animals are hungry, feed them. What the Mongol soldiers took from this was that now this was our opportunity to do whatever we want. Until today, in the courtyard, they have a monument which used to be a well. So they killed all the musallis in the masjid and they threw them into this well. That well, now they made it into a monument. Genghis Khan ascended the pulpit and he said a ajib thing. He said, me for you is the azab of Allah. Genghis Khan says to the Muslims, me for you is the azab of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then Genghis Khan, that same masjid, main masjid of Bukhara, Genghis Khan now, he makes it, by that very evening, he makes it into a place where alcohol is being served, where women are dancing, where the Qur'ans were taken, they threw the Qur'ans out and they filled it with fodder and water for the animals. And not only that, Genghis Khan made the imams and the scholars and the dignitaries of Bukhara feed them wine. Watch with them, the women dancing. So what did What did Genghis Khan's army do here? What did it do? Let me mention to you what Ibn Kathir rahmatullah alayhi mentions about what the army of Genghis Khan did here. Genghis Khan, he says that his army violated the women in front of their parents, in front of their fathers, in front of their husbands. He says many Muslims, when they saw this, they couldn't bear it and they gave their life. Ibn Athir, not Ibn Kathir, Ibn Athir was a very famous historian. He has a Tariq book called Al-Kamil. He was a contemporary of this time. And he says he was so traumatized by what he had heard. He says, many times people have asked me to put pen to paper on this issue. He goes, I have never been able to put pen to paper. He goes, every time I wanted to speak about this issue and write about this issue, I was too traumatized. He said, I wish my mother had never given me birth, that I had to undertake this responsibility. But he said, because it may benefit humanity, he wrote. And he mentioned everything which Ibn Kathir rahimahullah wrote, but then he added to it as well. He said, if I was to say that since the time of Adam alayhi salatu wasalam, that humanity has never been afflicted with anything like the Mongols, he said this would be no exaggeration. He said if you look into history, they speak about, in the Quran and the Sunnah speaks about Bukht al-Nasr. Say Bukht al-Nasr was a big issue. What did he destroy? He destroyed Al-Quds, Palestine and that area. He says these people destroyed the entirety of the Khwarizm dynasty. They destroyed the entirety of the Abbasid dynasty. They reached Moscow. They reached Bulgaria. And the Muslims, people of Iman, people who say La ilaha illallah Muhammadan Rasulullah, even them who have the stories of Badr and Uhud and Khandaq, even amongst the Muslim Ummah, they had this statement. They would say, إن قيل لك إن التتار قد انهزموا فلا تصدق. If anybody tells you that the Mongols have been defeated, don't believe them. These people are invincible. The Mongols actually had songs that they made up. So when they would kill a Muslim and they were about to strike him, the Muslim would say, Wallahi la taqtulni, Wallahi la taqtulni. So they had these songs made up, Wallahi la taqtulni, Wallahi, and all these long songs regarding the persecution of the Muslims. Ibn Athir says that even Dajjal will spare those who follow him. He says the Mongols were such that they spared nobody. Not those who submitted and not those who fought against them. Just imagine this. Bukhara, the place of Imam Bukhari, Imam Zamakhshari, Ibn Sina, many of the greatest minds of this ummah. Ibn Battuta says, I came 100 years to Bukhara after the Mongols had sacked it. He said, I found not one scholar. Not one scholar I found. Then they went to Samarkand. Samarkand was a richer than Bukhara. It had 50,000 men defending it. And the story about Samarkand is ajib, because when Qutaybah bin Muslim al-Bahili took it, he didn't offer them the three options: Islam, Jizya, or the sword. He found this opportunity to take the city, and he knew that people obviously they would fight back. So when he got this opportunity, he took the city. So a little while passes and they learn about Islam, but they're not Muslims. The people of Samarkand are not Muslims. So they hear that the Muslims have to give you three options. So they complain to the leaders of Samarkand. They fall on deaf ears. They say, you didn't give us three options. So they said, we're going to go to the Khalif. So they send one of their men to the Khalif. Who was the Khalif? Umar ibn Abdul Aziz rahmatullah alayhi in Damascus. The man they're regarding, who they said he was the fifth. he was the fifth Khulafa Rashidun, meaning that he brought Khilafah on the manhaj of the first four Caliphs. So he traveled all the way to Damascus. He's not a Muslim. And he meets these Muslims and they really entertain him. And he embraces Islam. But he said, look, I want to meet the Caliph. So they go looking for the Caliph. They can't find him. Eventually they say, oh, the Caliph's in that house. So he goes into the house and he sees Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, the most powerful man on the face of this earth. He's taking some cement and clay and he's filling a wall. So he walks out. He said, listen, I want you to see the Caliph, not the builder. I don't want to see the local builder. And his wife is mixing the clay and the cement, and Umar Abdul Aziz is applying it on the wall. So he said, that is Amir al-Mu'mineen. So he goes, he gives him the letter. So Umar ibn Abdul Aziz takes this letter, he looks at it, he turns it around, he signs it, he said, go and give it to the governor. So this messenger says, by Allah, if it was not for the fact that my people would have belied me and they said, you wasted our time, I would have thrown it away. So what's this piece of paper? He turned it around and he signed it on the other side. So he says, I reach Samarkand, I give the letter to the governor reads it, and then they take it to the Qadi makes a decision that you took the city against the laws and the norms of Islam. The entirety of Samarkand is emptied of Muslims. The entirety. They go out now to the walls and then they offer them Islam. The people of Samarkand were so impressed by the mannerisms of the Muslims, they said, open the gates, and they all embraced Islam. So this was the history of Samarkand. So when Genghis Khan now came to Samarkand, he did exactly what he did in Bukhara. Exactly what he did. Actually, the soldiers, when they heard about the Mongols, because the Mongols, what they would do is that they would take the people from the other city and they would take them to the outskirts of the next city and then they would butcher them there. So the locals would see that what has happened to them, so either they would fight until the end or they would generally open the gates. So the soldiers, 50,000 soldiers, refused to fight. So the locals took up arms. So they came out. Now the Mongols were seasoned warriors. You know what? The Mongol Empire is the second largest empire ever recorded in human history. You know what the largest is? Tell me, you tell me, what's the largest? The British Empire. I know you were thinking, oh, the Muslim Empire. The British Empire, yes, this little island, yes. The largest empire ever recorded in human history. The second largest, the largest on land mass is the Mongol Empire. Nothing was larger than this. They were seasoned warriors. They were all bow-legged. Why? Because they rode horses so much. They would change their clothes once a month but not wash them. They said the stench would scare you off the Mongols. So the locals come out. The locals come out and they go further afield, and the Mongols go further back. These weren't professional soldiers, until they had enticed them far enough, and then they encircled the 70,000. The size of Samarkand was 100,000 homes. Not one soldier survived. Not one Muslim survived. Every single one out of the 70,000 were encircled and butchered. And then they took the city, they did exactly the same thing. They took Gurgunj. Juwayni, Persian historian, says that there were 50,000 Mongol soldiers. Each one of them had 24 men, women and children that they had to kill. Millions were killed by the Mongols. A lot, wallahi, could be said. I don't have time, but a lot can be said. I want to just pay attention specifically to Uzbekistan. But one thing I want to mention is right next door were the Abbasides. The vast majority they were Arabs. The Khwarizms were not Arabs. For over 40 years, the Abbasides watched what happened to the Khwarizm dynasty. They watched the persecution of their Muslim brothers and sisters for 40 years. But as long as they weren't being harmed, they were fine. And then a day came when their turn came. And the Mongols did exactly the same what they did to the Khwarizm dynasty. Because Allah says, وَتِلْكَ الْأَيَامُ نُدَاوِلُهَا بَيْنَ النَّاسِ. These are the days that we rotate amongst people. Today you think you're secure, you're fine? No. A day will come that it will be your turn. And this is why, brothers and sisters, we learn from our history. We learn from places like Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan. Look, the vast majority of us don't even know these countries. Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan. These were the centers of learning once upon a time. Inshallah, Allah willing, next week I will speak about recent events, the Soviets, the communists, and what a Ajib place, wallahi, this place is. What a Ajib place this is. Inshallah, in the next couple of weeks, inshallah, we'll speak about these things. Today, I just wanted to speak about the Mongol history so you understand what these people went through. And then the deen came back. And then they had the communists. And then what the communists did. And subhanAllah, this is the Iman, Islam. You know, until today, after all this, the deen lives in their hearts. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala elevate the status of the martyrs. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant them Jannatul Firdaus. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep us united in this dunya. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reunite us in Jannatul Firdaus. Barakallahu feekum. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.